Have you ever looked at the biblical story of Exodus and felt there was something more, a deeper layer of meaning just beyond your grasp? The narrative of liberation from Egypt is a cornerstone of faith, yet many details remain veiled, waiting to be illuminated. This video aims to gently pull back that veil, revealing a subtle recurring pattern woven into the very fabric of this ancient account. We'll be exploring the significance of this emergent pattern, not as a secret conspiracy, but as a profound testament to divine orchestration. Understanding this sequence can profoundly impact your perception of Scripture, offering new insights into God's faithfulness and His meticulous planning. It's about seeing the familiar with fresh eyes, recognizing a divine fingerprint in the unfolding of history. Our journey will focus on this specific recurring motif, carefully tracing its presence through key events of the Exodus. We will avoid speculative theories or claims of hidden gospels, instead concentrating on observable structures within the established biblical text. The goal is to present a discovery that enhances rather than contradicts your existing understanding of this pivotal narrative. As an avid student of biblical narratives and patterns, my study has led me to observe these recurring elements. This isn't about claiming unique revelation, but about sharing diligent observation and research into how Scripture itself might reveal deeper layers through its structure. My aim is to present these findings with clarity and respect for the sacred text. To truly grasp the significance of this discovered pattern, it's essential to first set the stage. We must acknowledge the foundational narrative of Israel's enslavement and God's promise of deliverance, a context that makes the emergence of any recurring motif all the more remarkable. This historical backdrop is crucial for understanding the subsequent revelations. Before the grand Exodus, we find seeds of this pattern laid within the book of Genesis itself. Consider the story of Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, yet rising to a position of power that ultimately saved his family from famine. This narrative arc, though different in scope, presents an initial glimpse of a divine hand working through adversity. The concept of a divine pattern in Scripture isn't new. Scholars have long recognized numerological and structural elements. However, the specific motif we are uncovering in Exodus appears as a more thematic repetition, a sequence of divine action that subtly echoes previous divine interventions. It's a narrative rhythm, not a rigid formula. Other ancient cultures also sometimes employed narrative repetition to convey important truths or demonstrate divine consistency. Yet the biblical use often carries a unique theological weight, pointing to an unchanging God who operates within His created order and historical timeline. This consistency is a hallmark of divine character. Imagine building a complex structure where each brick, though unique, is placed with intention, contributing to an overarching design. The Genesis accounts in this view are like the foundational bricks, establishing principles that will be revisited and amplified in the grander construction of the Exodus narrative. These early stories prepare us. Understanding these foundational elements in Genesis provides the necessary lens to recognize how this pattern is not merely coincidental, but intentional. It prepares our minds to see the recurrence not as a simple echo, but as a deliberate reaffirmation of divine principles that will soon be unleashed on a monumental scale for Israel. The first clear manifestation of this recurring pattern emerges with Moses' initial encounter at the burning bush. God reveals himself not just as a rescuer, but as the God of their fathers, linking his promised action directly to past covenants and divine promises. This immediate historical connection is significant. Here we see a structure, a divine appearance, a revelation of God's purpose, and a commissioning of a servant, all occurring in response to the suffering of his people. This sequence is more than a story. It's a blueprint of divine engagement, designed to inspire faith through observable action rooted in God's character. While the burning bush is a unique divine event, the pattern lies in the response and the method. God doesn't just appear. He identifies himself through his relationship with previous generations and then institutes a plan for present deliverance, setting a precedent for future interventions. This establishes a theological rhythm. Think of it like a musical motif, a short, recognizable melody that is repeated and varied throughout a composition. The burning bush is the first statement of this divine melody, establishing its core elements. We hear the initial notes of God's faithfulness and his sovereign plan for liberation. This initial manifestation sets a critical precedent. It shows us that when God acts decisively for his people, he often does so by weaving his present power with his past faithfulness. This established principle is not just a historical curiosity, it's a key to unlocking subsequent events within the Exodus narrative. As Pharaoh's heart hardens, the plagues descend, and here the pattern becomes more pronounced and unmistakable. Each plague is not an isolated incident, but part of a series designed to demonstrate God's power over Egypt and his commitment to Israel's freedom, echoing the divine engagement at the bush. Notice how God's power is displayed through specific targeted actions, often involving elements of nature that the Egyptians deified. This highlights the contrast between the Creator and creation, a recurring theme in divine revelation. God uses his sovereignty to dismantle false worship and assert his authority. The pattern involves a progression, a divine challenge, Pharaoh's defiance, divine judgment, and a subsequent, though temporary, revelation of God's intent to his people. This cyclical nature though fraught with tension, consistently points towards an inevitable divine victory and deliverance for Israel. Consider a chess game where each move, though distinct, serves a larger strategy. The plagues are not random attacks, but calculated moves in a divine game, each one weakening the opponent, Pharaoh Egypt, and advancing God's ultimate objective, the liberation of his people, according to his established pattern. This consistent application of the pattern in the plagues and eventual deliverance offers crucial insight. It suggests that divine action in history is not chaotic, but ordered, with recurring elements that can be observed and understood, revealing God's character and his unwavering commitment to his promises. The climax of this pattern's manifestation is undoubtedly the Passover. God instructs Israel to prepare a sacrifice, a lamb, whose blood will serve as a sign on their doorposts. This act is the culmination of the previously established divine engagement and a powerful declaration of separation. Here the pattern manifests as a sacred ritual, a tangible act of faith required from the people. God's command is precise, linking obedience to protection. The blood becomes the signifier of divine intervention, a clear distinction between those under God's covenant and those outside it. This is a crucial step. The Passover is not merely a historical commemoration, it's a profound theological statement. It demonstrates God's protective power, his judgment against sin and oppression, and his provision for his people through a sacrificial substitute, reinforcing the divine method of deliverance. Think of a powerful warning beacon. The blood on the doorposts is that beacon, a clear signal to the angel of death to pass over. This visual cue is a direct consequence of Israel's obedience to God's patterned instructions, demonstrating the efficacy of his divine plan when followed. This final, potent manifestation solidifies the pattern observed. It transforms a historical event into a repeatable spiritual principle. The Passover shows that God's deliverance is often marked by symbolic acts of obedience and the application of divine judgment and protection through appointed means. Following the Passover and the miraculous parting of the Red Sea, Israel enters the wilderness, a period that further illustrates the consistency of this divine pattern in sustaining his people. Faced with hunger, God provides manna, a direct and repeated act of provision. The manna was not earned by Israel's merit, but was a daily gift, requiring daily dependence. This emphasizes the ongoing nature of God's commitment, a continuation of the pattern of divine engagement and provision established earlier. It's a testament to his sustained care and his consistent character. This provision, while miraculous, also carries specific instructions. Gather only what is needed for the day, with an exception for the Sabbath. This highlights the order and discipline inherent in God's provision, not just providing sustenance, but also teaching principles of stewardship and trust. Imagine a consistent, reliable stream of nourishment. The manna served as this stream for the Israelites, a constant reminder that their survival was dependent on God's faithfulness, not on their own efforts. Each morning, the pattern of provision was renewed, solidifying their trust. The wilderness journey, with its provision of manna, demonstrates that God's pattern extends beyond miraculous escapes to the sustained care required for His people. It shows a God who not only liberates, but also sustains, ensuring His promises are fulfilled through ongoing faithful engagement. The pattern of divine action and engagement in Exodus is also mirrored in the commands God gives to Israel at Mount Sinai. The Ten Commandments, foundational to their covenant relationship, reflect principles of order, justice, and relationship that are consistent with God's character. These laws were not arbitrary rules, but expressions of God's perfect nature, designed to guide His people into a life that honored Him and reflected His righteousness. The clarity and purpose behind these commands echo the very deliberateness seen in the plagues and provisions. Consider the structure of the commandments themselves. A preamble, a foundational statement of identity, "I am the Lord your God," followed by specific directives. This mirrored structure, from identity to action, parallels the pattern of divine revelation followed by human response. Think of these commands as the architectural plans for a holy nation. Just as the Exodus story had a pattern of divine action, the covenant establishes a pattern for Israel's life, ensuring their continued relationship with God and their distinctiveness from the surrounding nations. Therefore, the patterns in the Exodus narrative are not isolated events, but are intrinsically linked to God's desire for a covenant relationship. His commands at Sinai reveal the divine blueprint for life, a blueprint that is consistent with the very nature of the God who orchestrated their liberation. The construction of the Tabernacle, the portable sanctuary for God to dwell among His people, represents another crucial manifestation of this underlying pattern. The detailed instructions for its design and furnishings are not arbitrary but symbolic and purposeful. The tabernacle's design, with its progression from the outer court to the Holy of Holies, mirrors the sacredness and presence of God. The materials, the rituals, and the sacrifices all point towards the holiness of God and the need for a mediator, reflecting the pattern of divine access. This is where the pattern moves from historical event to sacred space. The meticulous nature of the instructions, the specific requirements for every element, underscores God's desire for communion, while also highlighting the separation caused by sin. It's a physical representation of divine order. Imagine a map leading to a sacred treasure. The tabernacle's design is that map, guiding Israel into the presence of God through prescribed means. Each component, from the laver to the Ark of the Covenant, tells a part of the story of approaching a holy God. The tabernacle's intricate design and purpose are a testament to the enduring pattern of God's desire to be with his people, even amidst their imperfections. It demonstrates that his holiness demands a specific way of approach, a theme that resonates throughout the entire Exodus experience. What truly emerges when we trace this pattern is the profound sense of unseen orchestration throughout the entire Exodus event. It's not merely a series of occurrences, but a divinely guided narrative, with recurring motifs that reveal God's consistent character and purpose. This orchestration suggests that beyond the visible events, a deeper divine plan was unfolding. The repetitions we've observed are not coincidences, but deliberate echoes, confirming God's faithfulness to his promises and his meticulous oversight of history. This is a key takeaway. The consistent application of this pattern, from the initial call of Moses to the establishment of the covenant and the tabernacle, reveals a God who is deeply involved and highly intentional. It speaks to a profound depth in his relationship with humanity, extending beyond mere rescue. Consider the conductor of a grand symphony. The Exodus is that symphony, and the recurring pattern is a theme played by different instruments in different ways, yet always recognizable. It's the conductor's hand, guiding every note towards a harmonious conclusion. This underlying structure, this persistent pattern, invites us to view the Exodus not just as an historical account, but as a theological masterpiece. It reveals a God who is not only powerful and merciful, but also incredibly precise, weaving his purpose through every moment with discernible consistency. Understanding this consistent pattern in the Exodus has profound implications for us today. It reveals a God whose character and methods remain constant, offering reassurance in our own lives and faith journeys. His faithfulness in the past is a testament to his faithfulness now. This pattern encourages us to look for God's hand in our own experiences, recognizing his consistent engagement even when circumstances seem chaotic. The same God who liberated Israel is actively involved in our lives, guiding and sustaining us through his unchanging nature. We can draw strength from knowing that God's deliverance is often marked by his specific instructions and the need for our obedience. The principles of faith, dependence, and the acknowledgement of his holiness remain relevant, calling us to respond in similar ways. If you found value in uncovering this pattern, consider how it might shape your personal study of Scripture. Perhaps delve deeper into other narratives, seeking these recurring themes that speak of God's unchanging character and his persistent work in human history. Ultimately, the secret pattern in the Exodus isn't meant to be a mere academic discovery, but a catalyst for deeper faith. It's an invitation to trust in a God whose consistent presence and purposeful action are woven into the very fabric of salvation, past, present, and future.